is my passion is out there. I share it with my staff, I share it with my students, but I also share it with my community. Our parents have high expectations of their children as well. Explicit teaching of literacy and numeracy underpins my teaching. And these programs are focused on the deep understanding and significant for both teachers and students. Lessons engage students in meaningful classroom practice and provide a quality learning environment where learning is about the real world, is in an active collaborative process built on high expectations and a commitment to improving practice and enhancing student learning. This is what the students say. She helps us imagine new stories, ask questions, mix up words, read between the lines to get meaning. When explaining and we work, she asks us to wait, absorb, wait so that we understand. I think quite often we're very fast paced and students need time to learn as well. And I know we've been part of the national partnerships. We've taken it very slowly because as a staff we need time to absorb and make sure we do it well. She makes us feel confident and happy by walking around smiling when we're doing something hard. There needs to be that trust and that positive relationship built with students, getting to know them and their family and their needs. I remember my first sort of couple of weeks at Auckland West, I had a new Teachers' Day and Barbara talked about how if you show children you like them, they're going to give you a lot. And I think culturally in our school, if you give them a little bit, they're going to give you a mile. I always make sure that I'm here and happy to be here because kids know when you're not quite with it and they will ask, what's wrong, you know, you're not yourself today. They're very observant. Kids that I talk about learning a lot, tells us some of her tricks, tells us funny stories and uses humour. She gives us reasons for changing behaviour, uses a polite, calm voice, and then students understand. Rarely behaviour is the focus. If there is behaviour issues, I bring it back to the learning. There's obviously, I'm not doing something right if there's a student misbehaving, they're not engaged, they're not understanding the task, or it's not at their level. So I reflect on my own teaching and how I can improve and engage that student because their behaviour is due to my teaching in my classroom. Just some things about how students are encouraged to think hard. Classroom rewards are intrinsic and linked to learning rather than the good boy, good girl. Learning processes are valued as much as the learning product. High rotation of high intellectual quality tasks across all subject areas. So if I've got my guided reading group and the other three groups are also reading, also focusing on the explicit criteria I'm expecting, it's not sit down, be quiet work, they are productive as well. And then they'll obviously rotate around the next day. Key vocab, concepts and responses are continually explored, explained and personalised through teacher and student discourse. Students are guided to provide reasons for their analytical responses and encouraged to question their conclusions. And I think the critical literacy that I do in my classroom provides that platform where there's no right or wrong answer. Say what you think and developing that trust and kids taking a risk and me taking a risk trying something as well. Knowledge is often accessed through shared discovery. And kids will go home and bring information back. I think that's really great. It maintains that flow in my classroom. Our students are encouraged to feel good. Learning is linked to real life context in the students' world, and I think that's vital. Our kids have very limited experiences, and if I can provide more experiences at school for them, then that's really great. The story path is a fantastic strategy to be able to write a job application, have an interview, be part of a problem-solving situation. Joint task construction, inclusivity and are encouraged. Humour and narrative I've mentioned. Students are challenged to achieve and use their imagination. And many different ways to learn are employed. Classrooms operate in many different ways. So I try to vary the activities to cater for all those different learning styles. And classrooms do not operate through control and punishment. Learning activities are frequently cooperative, lots of talk with kids between student and student, one-on-one with myself. I used to have a grid on my desk with the students all name on it, and just to make sure that I did have that one-on-one conversation once a week, every student in my class. Where are we up to? Where are we going next? Students are encouraged to be reflective, and I do that through modelling. Critical anti-testing is out for themselves. Their opinions and ideas are valued. There's no put-downs in the classroom. It doesn't matter if sometimes kids come out with weird and wacky answers, but the children, look, it takes a bit of time for them not to laugh and carry on and say, well, that's a really silly answer. That everyone's opinion is valued. Students are helped to become competent, independent users of technology, and I did a lot of the senior literacy project to force myself and challenge myself to become a little bit more savvy with filmmaking, and try to keep a step in front of my students, but they were always in front of me. Talk about their learning rather than behaviour, and students are regularly endorsed as potential and actual learners. Student community of reflection, group roles and responsibilities have facilitated the balance between student direction and teacher guidance of learning while providing a strong structure for student self-regulation. Groups are regularly shuffled so that students get used to work with all sorts of personalities and different children too. Individuals and groups are all involved regardless of academic level, and their ideas and opinions are valued and validated. All students have access to all learning. And there is a time and place for graded reading groups and graded maths groups, don't get me wrong, but I use a lot of mixed ability groups, and being able to bring my modern group up and really focus on that middle group who often get forgotten to meet their standards. Just a strong reinforcement of the school and the classroom as a community, and the students' input to decision making, I think, is vital. The classroom discourse is reinforced and built around that community. Teacher inclusive conversations. Tasks require students to convey understanding with each other and the teacher in substantive oral and written communications. Students are invited to be learners through teaching discourse and reflective conversations about learning. And teach and talk focus on learning over behaviour, aided by thoughtfully designed learning activities. Lots of student self-assessment. I have a bank of some of the strategies I use in the area of student self-assessment, and looking back at that explicit criteria, negotiating that with the class, and they're expected to check and interpret their performance against that. Peer assessment, very tough on each other, and one of the articles that we read was about that peer assessment and training them to know the explicit criteria. Questioning techniques promote student discussion and looking at ideas and guiding student acceptance of a variety of responses. And students are really encouraged to have multiple perspectives and recognise that choice exists in ways they construct and assess knowledge. And the 6 Thinking Hats is a really great framework, even as a staff, to evaluate things, because I know I'm very much a yellow hat thinker, trying to be very positive about everything. But sometimes you need to put that black hat on and use that questioning. What didn't work? Where do we need to go now? And quite often I use those questions when I'm evaluating major school projects, and I'll also ask the students the same questions. Teacher feedback. Feedback is specific to learning and positive participation. Positive responses to students and demonstrated high expectations and confidence that they could achieve. So not the good boy, good girl, but addressing against the criteria of what the task was about. Reflective metacognitive discussions are used to deepen and consolidate knowledge. That whole think aloud strategy, we were taught to be high cognitive readers and be able to read something and connect it to something else or question something. So I use a lot of think aloud. As I'm reading, I've read something about this before, and I try to link it to other things. So I'm modelling the high cognitive to my students. Knowledge. Students are positioned as joint constructors of knowledge, predictors, interpreters, evaluators and reflectors. I encourage them to go home and come back and share what they have learnt. Deep knowledge and understanding is reached without capitulation to busy, low-order tasks that occupy and obtain silent compliance. Meaning and knowledge are reached by connecting students' own context with the wider world and relating their learning to different audiences and different purposes. Choices, suggestions, responses are valued by the teacher and often by each other. Ability. All students are involved in work of high academic standard. And I know, as Stage 3 class or Stage 2 class, you have 4 or 5 different groups within your class, but it's not about watering down the curriculum, it's exposing them to where they should be and lifting that standard, having those high expectations. Individual confidence in their abilities is built by supportive opportunities to reflect on their work, and that comes back to those conversations I have with every student every week. And if I've missed out on that conversation, I make sure I double up the following week on my grid so I don't miss anybody. Control, we've talked about. Behaviour isn't an issue when students are engaged, and when you're talking about behaviour, you might redirect it around the task that's happening in the classroom, not about the actual behaviour itself. Because it might be they're not understanding the task or where to go to next. Teacher power is not exercised. As no student is criticised, I don't publicly humiliate children. It might be the little conversation quiet on the side. Teacher capacity to clarify and be explicit, to remain calm and exercise patience, to be humorous. And sometimes teachers get a little bit, they don't maintain that calm. Place genuine teacher validation of the affection for the positive aspects of the local community. I'm proud to be a teacher at Granville South. I'm proud to be part of this school community and celebrate that and involve everybody in the process of learning. Authentic learning tasks linked with the students' world. Parents and community members welcomed into the learning community. I share school targets, I share everything that's going on. Nothing that we do here is a secret. They're part of it. They're welcome to come in, and we've developed that really nice learning community culture. Voice. Learning is designed and generated choices in learning options using the open-ended tasks, and all students have frequent occasions to exercise their voice, maintain learning discussions, share learning time and attention and space, and reflect on their learning. I think it's important to keep your eye on the big picture of what it is and how to engage students. It's not about interactive spelling or the senior literacy project or technology. It's beyond that, but there's no quick fix to student engagement. And I think it's something we need to look at the research like we have today and work on different areas. Thank you.